How's it going, everybody? Uh, not the results we wanted to start off the season with. So try to make it so you can see my eyes. Not the result we wanted to start off the season with, or kick off our first post-game live of season 4 with, but it's unfortunately what we were here for. It's the Kraken fall 3-2 to the St. Louis Blues. Lots of positive takeaways from this one. Still some stuff that the Kraken need to work out under the new coaching staff, and while they're gelling with new lines and new additions and all that kind of stuff, I still think that there's probably more positives to take away from this one than negatives. I mean, heck, you remove basically a 2-minute stretch for the Blues, and they don't have anything in this one. So I think there's still good stuff for us to talk about on this one, but it wasn't what we were initially hoping for when we got the game and everything underway here. So, but I'm really happy to be back for another season of doing post game lives. Wow, I'm gonna need to figure out the glare here. Really excited to be back for another season of post game lives with everybody. It was really awesome to see everybody in person here tonight, or today, I should say. It's not gonna be wasn't tonight, but I was really happy about all that, and I'm just gonna go ahead and get into the comment section here, and then I'm sure we'll have stuff that we can use to break down and everything. And of course, I'm really interested to hear when RJ joins us in a little bit, kind of what Dan has to say about this one and what he feels after it kind of got away from the Kraken after they took that 2-0 lead early on. So without further ado, I'll go in here. Draver, starting up positive, 81-1 is still possible. Yes, it is. 81-1 is still on the table for the Kraken. Look, there's an old baseball saying of, every team's going to lose, is it 41, and every team's going to win 41, and then it's what you do with that other 82 or whatever. You could probably do the math and figure out the equivalent of a hockey season, and it would be that way. We talked about it, though, yesterday on the pod, right? And it was the Kraken, you need to win the games that you can win, and this was a game that they could win, right? It's a St. Louis team that doesn't have a ton of star power. Arguably, their best player outside of Robert Thomas out there is going to be Jordan Binnington on some nights. And this was one of the games where you could start banking points early while you were still figuring things out, right? You're still figuring out the power play. You're still figuring out the different lines of the different systems and all that kind of stuff. And it looked like through really the first 2 periods outside of that 2-minute stretch where St. Louis was able to pick up all their goals, it looked like the Kraken were in that boat where they were the better team on paper and they were playing like the better team, and then they kind of came out flat for the third. Doesn't help that you're starting on the PK for almost full 2 minutes on the third. That was less than ideal to start the one out, but I still felt like there was some positive stuff in here. We'll get there. I just want to catch up on chat real quick first here. B, we are so back to giving up 2-goal leads. It is the most dangerous lead in hockey. Continues to be for the Kraken as well. I don't get it. I don't get it. I can hear it now. That was a winnable game from Zoe. It was, and that is the unfortunate kind of reality of this, is that it was a very winnable game, and the Kraken just did not quite manage to get it done. I mean, they just couldn't close it out, and they kind of let things get away from them. And we'll get into the momentum swing in a sec, but first super chat of the season from Gary. Thank you so much, Gary, for the super chat with the just dad with all the exclamation marks. That's right. The captain have a new captain for the season. It is Jordan Eberle. Lots of rumors that this was going to happen. We've been talking about it. We've been trying to get confirmation from the team, it seems like, for the past week, because it felt like a captain was coming, felt like it was going to be Jordan Eberle. We finally got the first confirmation about 2 minutes before he skated out onto the ice with the C. Everybody was looking for warm-ups. He had skated out with the A for warm-ups. We had posted that. Everybody had kind of posted that. He comes out. They updated the media roster, is how we actually all figured it out up on the press bridge. They updated that about 2 minutes before they were doing the starting lineup and everything. And news that it had been updated there kind of went down the press bridge, and we were able to grab it. But yes, Jordan Eberle, Seattle Kraken captain. I think he's a good pick. We talked a lot about this on the podcast yesterday, the idea of Jordan Eberle being captain makes a lot of sense, especially with the young guys and the young potential leaders that this team has, whether it's Berkeley Catton further down the line, Shane Wright coming up, or Matty Beniers, who, surprise, surprise, picks up an A and wears an A on his chest for this game. So I think, Jordan Eberle is going to be here the next 2 seasons. Don't really know, very far past that. But at that point, it would make sense to try to pass the torch on to one of the younger members of the Kraken that would kind of come in as that next wave of leader. And at least right now, Matty Beniers kind of has the inroads on that. And I mean, I was talking Matty Beniers as potential Kraken captain back before his first full season. If any of you are OGs going back that far, so I was not surprised to see that A. I mean, I was surprised to see the A on like night 1 for Matty this year, but I am not surprised that it has happened and that things are kind of tracking in that direction. But it's nice for the Kraken to have a captain. We are no longer the only team in the league without one. We have one. It is Jordan Eberle, and I think he's going to do a fantastic job at it. Cody, no dance party today, but hopefully after the next one, a couple of real hiccups gave this one away. Yeah, so let's talk about the things that kind of happened in this one. I think the big thing is going to be the momentum shift, right? Kraken go up 2-0 in the second period, get into a couple, scrums there, scuffs, whatever you want to call it, fisticuffs, right? You have the first one where Vince Dunn gets involved with somebody, and after that, it maybe kind of slowed some of the Kraken momentum. Second one, Vince Dunn again also kind of involved. Lars really comes in, and there's, lays out a big hit. Lots of stuff goes down. Kraken end up walking away with only just missing the initial penalty that kind of kicked things off. And I don't hate what Vince Dunn and what Lars were trying to do in all of that, because you've already taken the penalty if you're the Kraken, right? You've got the holding call. You're trying to get them to bite and kind of cancel it out, right? You're trying to get St. Louis to take a dumb penalty, to take an emotional penalty. You're trying to bait them into something. I don't hate that if you're Vince Dunn or Adam Larson. It didn't work, right? You maybe baited yourself into getting too involved. But I don't hate the idea of that. But St. Louis goes on the power play. They convert the power play. And then from there, they just don't stop scoring. So you have the momentum shift there, and you could argue whether or not the Kraken got drawn into something that they shouldn't have. I think the other thing that you have to focus on, though, is, and this started like 30 seconds into the game, the Kraken struggled all night dealing with, the Blues entering the zone with any sort of speed. They struggled with defensive entries is really where the Kraken struggled. Anytime the Blues were able to attack off the rush, the Kraken really struggled. They just didn't seem to have a lot of structure there. Guys were getting lost in that transitional process. There didn't seem to be a ton of communication, or they were trying to communicate in the moment, which then kind of takes you out of the moment. There's a lot of issues for the Kraken kind of coming back into their own zone while the Blues were attacking. And if you look at, at least 2 of those goals, that's basically what happens, right? The other thing that they kind of struggled with was, and this is familiar if you watched any of the preseason games, net front defending. There was far too often the Blues were able just to kind of get somebody net front and be in a spot to collect a rebound and then go and put that rebound home. And that was something that the Kraken struggled with all through preseason, and really they struggled with last year. So with Dan, I had talked with him and asked him about systems and how he felt like guys were getting a hold of the new systems just a couple days ago. And he had talked about how really it's more so for the offense, because he's more or less running things back with the defensive system and with the defensemen this year based on what they had going for them last year. So I they had issues with this last year. I would hope that the new coaching staff, if you're going to keep the overall structure, the 2-3 zone, you're going to kind of go with that, which, hey, look, probably 70% of the league is running this, right? So, it's not an uncommon system and structure to be running defensively, but it was clear that last year they had issues losing people in front of the net, losing people in that kind of like secondary zone right outside of the net, where if there's any sort of large rebound, somebody from the other team is going to get there. Kraken continued through the preseason. We saw it today, continuing to struggle there. It's one thing to keep the system from last year. This was a fault of this, this was a problem for them last year. I'm hopeful that the coaching staff will start seeing that, start working on them, and hopefully the players are able to progress out of it, because if you're just allowing teams to kind of get to rebounds in front of your goaltender, you're going to allow goals. Like there's just no way around that. It's just something you kind of can't afford to do on a nightly basis. And right now the team is looking like they're doing that. I'm still willing to give them, a little bit more time. Dan has been talking 20 games into the season, right? Like his expectations for the team is 20 games into the season before everything really starts clicking and starts gelling for them. Some of the defensive issues, I could see that for defensive zone entries. That's a little bit different than what they did last year. Like I said, it looks like guys are still a little bit lost trying to get comfortable into that. It hasn't clicked for them yet. I'll give them the 20 games on that. This net front defending issue, they shouldn't need the 20 games because this was an issue for them last year too, and they're still struggling with it. That one I feel like isn't as solid, right? Shout out the UGG. CJ, Alexiak had a tough game. Alexiak did have a tough game. Like I said, a lot of the defenders had a tough game, kind of just trying to deal with certain things. I mean, St. Louis isn't necessarily a fast team, but those defensive zone entries, it made them feel like a much faster team than they really are. And that's going to be a struggle for them. And that was also something that we did see kind of hints of in the preseason, right? It was one thing in the Oilers games. It's another thing when you were playing like Calgary, and all of a sudden you're making Calgary look like they're speedsters coming into the zone. It's something the Kraken need to work on. I have no doubt, though, that they are aware of it and that they're going to continue to work on it. That being said, Krakenagi 32 with a super chat here. Thank you so much for that, Kraken Hockey. Were you surprised to see how much ice time Brandon Montour had? No, I'm not actually. I think he's been one of the most comfortable looking defensemen throughout Kraken camp, throughout training camp. I think he's just kind of come out there and breathed a lot of life into things. I mean, I guess let me see what the final number was because I hadn't checked in a little while. I'm assuming it's a little. It should be good. The amount of ice time he had, unless you're asking that it was low, but no, I think if assuming it was a good number, I'm not surprised. He's looked fantastic all through camp. He's looked good through the preseason. I just think he's a really dynamic and special player and somebody who's going to be able to do a lot for this team. Yeah, 24 minutes leading the way. I think that's something that we can expect for the next little while. He's going to be, first unit power play. He's going to be a guy that they rely on special teams, also out there killing penalties. He's just kind of a do it all kind of guy. And I think that's something that they've been missing to an extent, right? Vince Dunn has kind of turned into that for this team, but I think that Montour can do some of the things that Vince can't yet, and I think that this is going to be something that we see fairly regularly, especially in a game where Kraken conceivably should have more than one power play, right? Like the refs really for the first half of this one, until those kind of roughing situations happened, the refs were really content to let both teams play. I think that was the right call. But yeah, let's see. Just because I'm down here, I'll start kind of going through and picking out comments. There's a ton of comments, a ton of people watching. I want to thank everybody for joining us. Pablo, how do you think Grubauer played? I thought Grubauer started the game really well. We know Grubauer loves to see shots early. He got to see some shots early. He had to make some big time saves in that first period while the Kraken were still kind of figuring things out, really starting off on the back foot when it came to those St. Louis Blues, off the rush chances and stuff that I've already talked about. So I think Grubauer started off the game pretty strong and looked pretty good. I think the first goal is one where you just kind of can't afford to let the opposing power play beat you with that much speed. Jordan Kyrou comes in. He's a talented guy, makes the move, beats Grubauer. That's one where I would rather the defense, and I believe that was Alexiak who kind of got burned on that one. I want the defense to kind of step up and be able to do something there and kind of help him out, not leave him out to dry with basically a breakaway chance on the power play. The second one, maybe you want him to have the second one. But I think that the two power play ones are just, the team putting him in tough spots. I think more or less though, Grubauer played good through the first period, kept the Kraken in it when they were struggling defensively, and then wasn't his obviously momentum shifted on everybody, and the team wasn't able to do much once that happened. Burnt Creme, in my opinion, defense was not the issue. They went like 12 minutes in the third with no shots on goal. Yeah. The third period response to everything was lacking, I think, right? And it's how much of it was on the Kraken versus the Blues made adjustments and the Kraken didn't make any counter adjustments. So in the first period, right, things look fantastic for the Kraken. They're piling up shots on goal. Really, first half of the second period too. They're piling on shots on goal. You're getting chances like that one early in the game, right? Jordan Eberle behind the net throws it in front. Matty Beniers is there, point blank. Binnington makes a huge save. You were seeing a lot of what the Kraken have wanted to do through the preseason games, through training camp, where they're trying to get guys lost in the low slot and then get them the puck at just the right moment for them to be able to take a high quality chance. And the Kraken were really successful in doing that. They had multiple looks of that. You saw them get the moving screens in front, moving tips in front, right? Tolvanen gets a goal off of one of those. You saw that look several times, and it led to some difficulties for Binnington, where he's able to make a save, but then there's a rebound, and the Kraken are there to try to get on the rebound. So I think through a lot of that stuff, you were seeing really good work from the Kraken. What happened was, especially in the third period, St. Louis was like, okay, we see what you're doing. What we're going to do is we're going to kind of collapse in our defense, and we're not going to give you those free open looks on the inside. And the Kraken didn't really adjust to that, right? They spent a lot of the third period waiting for somebody to get open, right? They've got the puck in the corner, they've got the puck at the point, and they're waiting for somebody to get open, and nobody's getting open, right? Because St. Louis has closed in and kind of collapsed down on the slot there, and they're making sure that those looks aren't there. There's no backdoor looks. There's nobody open in the slot, and the Kraken don't have a fallback right now. It appears where it's okay. If that's going to be the case, then we're going to start attacking from a steeper angle, or we're going to start throwing pucks on from the point, and we're going to hope that things get lost, because if the defense is going to collapse in, then that's just more bodies in front of the goaltender. Let's try to take advantage of that. Let's have our defense start shooting high, something like that. They didn't really make any adjustment like that. They didn't really go for anything else, and I think that's why you saw the third period kind of just look as dead as it did offensively for the Kraken, was because they were trying to do what they had been able to do through the first two periods. St. Louis caught on, didn't let them do it, and it's going to be something where teams are smart. They can see this stuff, right? They've got a lot of coaches on the bench watching these things. You've got video coaches in the back, right, watching these things. They can make adjustments during the period. If teams are going to make this adjustment, especially late in the game, what else do the Kraken have that they can go with, and that they can go out there and try to make something happen? And that's something that we're just going to kind of have to wait and see from them, because tonight we didn't see them make any adjustment off of that, and it's something that's going to need to happen, because I think this might be a regular occurrence for teams where they're going to make that adjustment and kind of keep you from doing the one thing that you pretty clearly want to be doing on offense. Sam, there's plenty of room to improve, but at least Kraken hockey's back. Also, wish me luck, because I'm about to become acquainted with a certain angry fellow they call Milton. Oh my goodness, Sam. Definitely good luck. I hope you stay safe. That storm looks terrible, absolutely terrible. It's gonna be really, really rough on a lot of people. I hope you and all your loved ones are able to stay safe through that, because it looks like a doozy for sure. Grubauer makes one more save, and we're in overtime from Lindsay. I know. Look, he made a huge save in the third period on that point blank shot from Nick Leddy. Kraken, a lot of guys made big saves on the empty net. There's at least that. We didn't give up the empty net goal, kept it only 3-2. Like, there's something, right? Like, kind of looking for some things here, so that it's hopefully not a long winter for Bert Krem, but it's yeah. Gregory, we're in control of this game until that disallowed goal. That certainly was also part of the momentum thing. It was obviously offsides. Now, I don't know if any of you were in the building. In the building, they never showed the angle on the actual shot. So everybody in the building was very upset that goal did not count, and they never really showed them why it didn't. It was off the shot from Alexiak, where it had come out of the zone. He shoots it back into the zone. It's offsides. They just kept replaying the initial zone entry on the Twins in the building, which was obviously clean. They were able to enter the zone. They were clearly in the zone. It was just later when it came out. But yes, the whether it was getting into the scuffles with the Blues, or it was the disallowed goal, Momentum obviously shifted. Kraken struggled to get it under control. Even after the third goal from St. Louis, I was talking to RJ. I was like, hey, maybe we see Dan Bylsma's first time out here. Did not call a timeout there. They were able to survive the last, I think, 4:42 or so of the period, escape it. Although you do take that penalty late. Yanni Gourde takes that penalty with like 22 seconds left or whatever, which kind of kills your momentum starting the third period. There was some stuff that the Kraken need to work on there. It's a learning moment for this group. It's a learning moment for this coaching staff, though, right? To kind of have that momentum switch happen against you. You have to figure out a way of stopping the bleeding, and then you've got to kind of turn things around and go out there on the attack. Hopefully it's a productive learning experience for them. Hopefully it's something that they are able to learn from and address and start applying different things. But it was sure rough in the moment, and it's going to be rough until their next game on Saturday, right? Like that is true. Maddie with lots of positives. Yeah, I mean, keep in mind, think of how dangerous this team looked in the first half of this game, right? Whether it was the first period where they weren't quite able to get a goal, but they were able to get phenomenal chances, or you look at a little bit into the second period where they're able to finally start breaking through and start scoring goals. This Kraken team felt dangerous in a way that I can't really remember. Not since season 2, they have looked dangerous, where it looked like they have an idea of what they're doing in the offensive zone. They're getting great looks. Binnington made some big saves. They had some bad puck luck, whatever. But they were able to look dangerous, feel dangerous, build momentum for themselves, jump out to a huge shot advantage in the first half of this one, right? I mean, St. Louis was not able to really get, I think they maybe had one shot through the first half of the second period, and the Kraken had doubled their shots. Like, they were really looking like they could take control of this game, and then the momentum swing happens, and we've already talked about what they need to work on there. But that to me was the biggest takeaway, was just that this Kraken team looked like it could be dangerous for the first time in a long time, because we just have not seen a dangerous looking Kraken team in a while, and that was good to see from them. Christian, hey, at least we're back in all the positive and negative ways. That is true. Better or worse, Kraken hockey is back, and it is still Kraken hockey, right? I think so. Riley, Cartier and Montour were our only players playing with any type of urgency. I think a lot of the unit was. I think this is a team that wants to skate, right? Dan has been talking about that a lot. It's partly why he brings in Jess Campbell, all that kind of stuff. Been doing a good job of things. I don't know. I feel like there was majority of this group was out there with some urgency and trying to go at things. I think I'd give it to more than just Cartier and Montour, but they certainly were doing their part and doing lots of good stuff. Let's see, Alex. I step away for 10 minutes to call the folks, and everything goes up in smoke. Yeah, it was if you like took a break from the game or something happened at just the wrong time in this one, you'd be thinking you stepped into some sort of time warp or something, and you ended up somewhere else. It is a tough one. It was a tough one. Looked at the game scorecards, and the Riker-Borgen pair was among the best, along with the right line, while Alexiak-Montour and the Stevenson line mine lowest. Does that track? Maybe tracks a little bit. I mean, the Shane Wright line was in the offensive zone a lot at the very beginning of the game. So I could see them banking a lot of goodwill, so to speak, on the scorecard in the first period, especially. That Shane Wright line was just like 100% of the time it felt like they were in the offensive zone. Obviously, they're out there for one of the goals, the Tolvanen goal. So in the early second period, so I could see that tracking with the Shane Wright line. Alexiak, lots of people in here, you know, he looks rough, right? Like, he looks like a statue. Stratic, a couple comments down, doing his best Jeremy Lauzon impression, right? Like, he got torched on that Kyrou power play goal that kicked off the scoring for the Blues. Like, he was rough. I think Montour was pretty good. I think Alexiak is struggling maybe to adjust with certain things, especially those defensive zone entries. I don't know. Maybe he's dealing with something, but he very much is like a statue in a bad way. And guys are able to kind of beat him with speed. It just seems like he's a little slow on the draw, you know, not in the face-off dot, but just like when something starts happening, maybe it takes him a sec to kind of figure out where he needs to be. The net front defending's not really there. Like, I would say that's kind of there. The Riker-Borgen pair, I could see again also being benefiting a lot from the certain times that they were out there. Seemed a little bit more sheltered as far as their ice time and their situations that they were deployed in. So I think that helps them for one, but also just they were both able to, and especially Will Borgen, I noticed him a lot in the offensive zone, able to step up, throw pucks on net, right? Kind of generate some of that goodwill that a game scorecard is going to be looking for, particularly when things were still going good for the Kraken at the beginning of the game. Laura, I blame ESPN. I mean, it's you could blame ESPN, you could blame just opening season, right? Kraken just I think 0-3-1. Somebody said in chat, right? Like this is unfortunately the norm for the Seattle Kraken when it comes to them starting off their season. So hopefully we see them turn it around, and one day we might be able to get a win to start things off and have the dream of 82-0 within our grasp. Fusion Mix. I remember the team looking really rough and disjointed at the start of season 2. Not going to overreact to one game. I agree with you, Fusion Mix. And like I said, I still feel like there was generally more positives to this one. Things that you could see are maybe beginning steps towards really good things and things that are going to do well for the team. Just haven't quite fully come together. There's obviously stuff that you need to work on. Most teams are going to have things day one that they need to work on, particularly a new group where you have guys like Alexiak and he's playing with a new partner. So he's got to kind of build that chemistry there, right? So to be fair to Jamie Alexiak, after we were just talking about him, that is something he needs to do. He has not played a ton of time with Brandon Montour. He's got to kind of build that chemistry with him, and that will probably help him some. But the new additions look good. Chandler Stevenson looked good. He was making plays, very creative in the offensive zone. And it looks like his line mates are starting to kind of get used to that, right? Especially Burakovsky. He looks like he's kind of getting on the same wavelength where he's learned that with Chandler Stevenson, expect the puck at any given time. He's going to find a way to get it to you. I still think that there's a lot of those kind of good stuff, good beginning steps for the Kraken that they can be taking here, and I'm on board with that. Let's see. Fusion makes sense too volatile, in my opinion. Like I said, I'm okay with the second one because you're trying to even things up from a penalty perspective. I know RJ is as well because we talked about that up on the press bridge. First one, I don't know. He's kind of going out of his way to get over there. Let's see. Dennis, complete shift in the game when game arena operator showed the wrong replay on the disallowed offside goals, created a weird vibe with the fans. Yes, there was huge, heavy, ref you suck check started because they did show the wrong replay, and it did create kind of like a weird vibe. I'm with you on that one, Dennis. I'm definitely with you on that one. Jeff, honestly, if they figure out a way to counter adjust and get back to how they played in the first, they'll be fine. Got to keep that game going. I agree, right? We talked about this earlier. Blues adjusted. Kraken didn't quite adjust. That's something that they need to work on, something that they need to do a little bit better. I see RJ across the way. It looks like he's trying to set things up. Wow, so it's kind of cool to be able to see that. It's kind of fun. Also, apparently, I'm going to need to start wearing contacts or just tilt my head down like this for the glare. So yeah, I think the adjustments will come. They're still just trying to get a handle on everything that they wanted to get a handle on. They had 20 short days, as Dan would say, to get as much work in as they did, and it's never enough for a coach, and it's something that they're just going to kind of continue to work on as the season gets going here. Let's see. Eberle, perfectly symbolic. Declining phase veteran, emblematic of this roster from Ricky. I know Ricky's a huge fan of the young guys. Ricky's always pushing for the young guys in chat. I love that about you, Ricky. Yeah, I still think that Ebbs as captain, it works for now. I don't know that any of the young guys are ready to step up. Ebbs is a short timer, so to speak. I still think that it'll end up being fine here. Got another super chat down here from Gary. Thank you, Gary. Monty is so fast, that dude flies. Maddie with some serious looks. Disco was deploying Shane in various situations. Stevie Berkey, Schwartz looked like they have been playing for half the season already. Yeah, no, I mean, we talked about Montour. Montour plays at a pace that the Kraken never really have, and his ability to get the puck up ice quick is really impressive. Like, when I think Brandon Montour now, what's seared into my brain is him skating backwards, collecting a puck in one motion, kind of doing the Mohawk thing with his skates, shifting around, and then making a pass up the ice because he's been looking as he does that transition. And that's a kind of quick adjustment off of defense onto the attack that we just have not seen from them in the past, right? Like they've wanted to, but they just never really have. And so that's something that I think would be very I'm excited for with Brandon Montour. Matty did have good looks in this one. I thought Matty kind of had some of his mojo back. I mean, he had that fantastic chance at the beginning. Would love for that to go in, but it was a great look for him. It looked like he was gelling and had the same chemistry from 2 seasons ago with Jared McCann and Jordan Eberle. I think whether it's the new weight or whatever, he looks way more comfortable playing on the inside in the offensive zone, getting in there and trying to kind of create chances in the slot. That's again another huge positive for him and his development and what this team wants to do. Shane is Shane. He looks fantastic. It's gonna all start clicking for him at any time, and he'll just kind of go off. But yeah, I really think that Stevenson, Berkey, Schwartz line. Also, it really surprised me, and it looked a lot better than I thought it would. I thought it might take them a little while to get going and kind of figure things out and whatever it is that they were going to do. But I thought they looked really solid there. All right, we've got RJ in here. How's it going, RJ?
Going all right, Dylan. Yeah, some interesting stuff. We had Eberle and Bylsma together after the game, so that was interesting.
Okay, I mean, go ahead and start with that. I assume Ebbs is there because of the captain announcement and all of that kind of stuff.
That's right. So Ebbs was there because of the captain announcement, and so he got some questions on the captain stuff. And he said, as far as the conversation, when he found out he was being named captain, he said basically it was just Dan and Ron kind of pulled me into their office and told me I was captain and to be quiet about it, because I think at that point it was still very much a secret in the organization. As far as him going into that role, he's never been a captain before at any level in his hockey career. So that was interesting. Actually, our friend Kate Shefty pointed that out. She was realized that he had never been a captain before. And he said that is true, but he's been around a lot of successful captains in the past. And he's gotten to learn from those guys throughout his long career. As for leadership style, doesn't sound like a whole lot is going to really change with him. He said the biggest thing when being a captain, when being a leader, is just to be yourself. And he said the type of guy that he said, I'm not going to be rah-rah in the locker room. I'm not going to be doing stuff like that. But I think the most important thing is just to kind of lead by your example and let that do the talking. So I don't think we'll see any kind of different Jordan Eberle. As we talked about on the podcast previously, slapping a letter on someone's chest isn't going to change the kind of person they are.
Yeah. The whole timing of it was interesting. I talked about it a little bit earlier on at the start of the post game, just kind of how it all seemed to come together. Are you a little surprised though, RJ? Because you and I didn't really have the time to talk. Are you surprised that they didn't make it kind of more of a bigger deal? They just kind of made it like as part of the introduction. We'll just kind of have him skate out, and they'll have the C on him. And even on social media, it felt like it was like one standard post, and that was kind of it. There wasn't necessarily, and maybe I missed it, but like a video of him talking about it or something that they had pre-recorded.
Right. I after seeing how it went, I guess I'm not all that surprised, because especially talking to people, maybe around the organization or within the organization, clearly it was this, I think the surprise element was something that was important to them. They did not want this thing spoiled. It was going to be a big surprise for everybody. And I think that was, the element that they were hoping they could kind of show off. And it would be that a lot of the fans who, in the building that maybe weren't following it as closely as we, the media, were, right, would go to the game, see in warm-ups, oh, there's no captain, I guess they're maybe not doing this. And then the announcement comes, and your captain, Jordan Eberle. And I think that kind of pop is what they were going for. So I see what they were going for with it.
Yeah, I also can't help but think, like, if you had announced it and made a big deal about it even just a couple days ago, like, people would have still been excited for that pop and the to see it here, but like you'd have created some buzz and some excitement around the team. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. All right, on to the other stuff, RJ. Plenty of things that I want to ask your opinion on that the chat has been talking about. There's been some common threads kind of throughout it as I've just been scrolling up and down at all the comments that we've gotten. First thing though, I want to, and I'm sure everybody else does, I want to hear, what did Dan have to say about the kind of change in momentum that happened in the second period where this game got away from them? and they kind of stopped the bleeding and got out of it, but then they were never able to look the same as they had earlier in the game.
Well, Dylan, I think you'll be pleased with his ability to evaluate what happened because it matches a lot of what you were telling me. I don't know if you made your point already about Vince Dunn getting involved in those scuffles, and have you?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and that kind of helping turn the tide. And that's exactly what Dan Bylsma talked about. He said, you get that play that was an offside goal, and it was clearly offside, no arguing about that call. But then we get involved in in the stuff. He said the other word. We get involved in the stuff, and then it gives them a power play. You give them another power play, and it just changes the momentum the whole way. And so he really did kind of key into that, getting involved physically when you're already winning the game, and you don't really need to do that as something that kind of turned the tide in this game. So I think it's exactly what you pointed out.
Yeah, and I had talked what you and I had talked about, right? Kind of give him the second one, right? Him and Lars, because you're maybe trying to bait somebody into evening things out. But that first one there wasn't really a reason to. And we know that teams, especially a team that's built like St. Louis, right? They're going to try to get back into the game any way they can. Kind of getting something started physically like that, it can be a motivator. It can be a momentum changer. Did he have anything to say about the other stuff, though, where it was, it seemed like in the third period, the Kraken didn't really have much life. They weren't able to really get anything going in a game that at that point they're down 1 in?
Yeah, he talked a little bit about the third period not being able to get the same kind of chances that they were getting. I think maybe he chalked it up more to just, the Blues playing really good defense, and you kind of have to battle through that and overcome that and find ways to overcome that. And that's some of the lessons to take from this one. He did see a lot of good, though, as far as the chances that they were able to generate, particularly early in the game. But he did talk about those chances being important, and especially the one that Shane Wright just missed that would have put them up 3-0. That was kind of the lead in to the turning point in this game. If that goes in, it's probably a very different game. But, as far as the Blues shutting them down, not a lot of, concrete answers. Not that a coach would give us exactly what the other team did tactically, but yeah.
You're telling me he didn't say what he wants to make a counter adjustments to next time? He didn't give us that?
Did not give us specific counter adjustments.
Didn't pull out the whiteboard and draw some stuff up for us? That's unfortunate. Brooke loves the suits. Thank you, Brooke. And I liked this one. Where is it from David? When's the prom, guys?
When is the prom?
That is a good one.
Is that toward the end of the season? Do we get to do prom?
Yeah, that's a good point. We should do that. We should set up some sort of Kraken media prom. I'm sure everybody would love it. One of the names that's popped up the most throughout chat so far, RJ, in a negative way, has been Jamie Alexiak and the struggles that he had here. I mean, I wouldn't expect anybody to have said anything about him necessarily post game, but just your thoughts on the game that he had.
Yeah, there were some big moments, certainly. I mean, I think of that turnover at the blue line for that third Blues goal, right, where Kyrou takes it in on a breakaway, and that's one of those that kind of turns the tide in this game. We saw this from him last season. He will have games like this occasionally. Most of them are good. I think on balance, he's usually a solid, steady defenseman that's a top 4 guy. This one felt like one of his bad games, and it just feels like almost a focus thing to me. And I don't want to fully give him a pass, but it is the first game of the season, and you almost kind of expect some people to not be 100% there yet. Does that make sense?
Well, and he has a new D partner, right? Like, so I'm willing to give him a pass on that. But at the same time, really with the defense as a whole, one thing Dan has been consistent with is that he's not really changing up the defensive structure that much. A lot of the stuff that they struggled with in the preseason and that they struggled with today, RJ, was stuff that they struggled with last year, right? Net front defense. Like, they give up rebounds. They let the other team get to rebounds, right? If the goaltender's going to give up a rebound, Grubauer in tonight's case, the other team's going to be able to get there and be there for them. And we saw the Blues able to do that on a lot of chances, or they'll lose somebody net front. I feel like at some point they might have to get in there and change a thing or two from what this team was doing last year, because there was plenty of times last year where we were like, you kind of can't make that mistake. And it felt like that was repeating again today.
Yeah, it was a little less egregious, I think, this time than the net front plays last year that you had. I mean, you look at where the goals came from, and a lot of times it's from either a turnover or speed. I don't know. What did you think about the first goal, the one from Kyrou? Because Alexiak gets beat clean.
He gets burned on that one. That's bad. Yeah, like, you can't get beat like that. Well, look, I already broken down like one thing that they have changed defensive structure wise is their defensive zone entries, and it does clearly look like guys do not know where, like the trust that the forwards have built amongst themselves about knowing where guys are going to be within the new structure. It does not look like the defenders have that same level of trust yet. So there's a lot of communicating as things are happening, which takes you out of the play. It makes you that half second behind the play. The defensive zone entries, I think, are a different story, but just with some of the basic net front stuff, yes, it wasn't as egregious as last year, but it was still there, and it was a little worrying.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And then here's Stratic bringing up another point. The Kraken didn't get burned on any of them, but they do need to clean up some of the defensive zone giveaways. I don't want them to lose the emphasis on setting up more effective breakouts, though. That one, I think, is, again, it's one of Dan's give us 20 games to get everything down and together and for everybody to click. I feel like that's something where that'll just kind of handle itself as they just get more and more game reps.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought it up, Stratic, too, because like you said, they didn't get burned on any of them in this game, but there were a lot of them. And I remember talking to you, Dylan, mid-game, where it seemed like in the first period, the Kraken had a lot of good chances that they didn't score on because of puck luck or whatever, where St. Louis did those sort of things. And it felt like, oh, man, they're unlucky to not be ahead. That more than evened out throughout the rest of the game. There were plenty of chances the Kraken didn't get burned on through those defensive zone turnovers that they very well could next game.
Yeah. Bryce, ESPN didn't show Eberle's introduction, so they must have been surprised too. Brooke, they have a captain video on the app in the announcement article. Okay, I'll have to check that out. And then Julia, ESPN had no idea what was going on. They were like, "Oh, is this the Kraken's first ever captain?" If you're gonna make us the marquee first game of the season, you got to do better than that. Come on. And then I also hear there was a lot of audio issues potentially for that one. Yes, Christian, the ref you suck chance make more sense now is explaining the situation there with them showing the wrong.
Yeah, they showed the wrong replay. Really like knowing. It's and, yeah, and the fans saw the wrong thing.
Dennis in chat was saying that he felt that kind of contributed as well to maybe some of the momentum shift, just because it created a weird vibe in the arena where you have all 17,000 people upset about something that there really isn't a reason to be upset about, and maybe that kind of contributes to the odd energy that was going on there.
Yeah, I think it can contribute to the energy. I think the players are generally pretty good at tuning that stuff out, but that whole play was just an odd play too, where I think Tanev thought it went in. Remember, he was celebrating because he couldn't tell from his angle, and so you kind of have to just switch up the mindset really quick.
Yeah. I want your opinion on some of the other players that have been talked about. Here's one from Fusion Mix. I was really happy that Matty had some nice sneaky shots in motion, not just his thing where he bends over and shoots into the logo.
Yeah, I think there were some different looks for Matty Beniers. I thought he had some really good moments in this one, and especially kind of turning around and making some plays in the offensive zone, especially early in the game when the Kraken were cycling, when they were playing offense the way that they want to play. He looked like he belonged, especially with his line, kind of getting those pucks out net front really quick. There were a lot of chances like that he was a part of. So I like that element from him. You know, there were times where I felt like he kind of went a little bit quiet. He made some good plays in the D zone, also breaking the puck out. Aside from that bad stretch in the second, he looked pretty good in his own end as well. So I like that from him. And also, I'm wearing an A. That was something he got a question about after Eberle got a question about after the game too, and talked about how Matty's matured and is ready to kind of grow into that role.
Yeah, that was the element, the surprising element of the whole thing. I don't know about for you, but I was surprised.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it.
Yeah. Let's see. And then I mean, there's like 1,000 Montour comments. I'll read Brooks here. Really liking Montour so far. I hope he pushes our other defenders to be better. Speaking of, love Dunn's 2 block shots during the empty net. Seems accidental, but still counts. But yeah, lots of love for Brandon Montour here. Leads the Kraken in ice time after this one. I was not surprised to see that. I think that's something we'll see quite frequently.
Yeah, this is what we've seen all preseason and training camp, and what we were told from Florida, right, that he brings. He looked as advertised, and this is what you pay for when you go out and get a money-free agent. He adds a lot to the blue line. I still think some of his teammates need to get used to the way he thinks and what he does sometimes, particularly Jamie Alexiak, but that's on them, not him. He's going to do his thing, and he's going to create.
Yeah, and defensive pairs just take time. Like, but building that chemistry, unfortunately, it just takes time, and it takes game reps. and 6 preseason games is not enough, of which they weren't really even paired together until the last 2. So it is unfortunate there. Your thoughts on Shane Wright, RJ?
Shane, he had some good looks. He didn't kind of pop as much to me as I thought he might. But then again, it's game 1 of the season. He had that big face-off win on the was that the Tolvanen goal. So I didn't see what his final numbers were in the dot, but at least to my quick eye test, he looked pretty good. So that was nice.
I was going to say the Kraken as a whole was not good, but that's unsurprising.
Yeah. And again, I felt like when the Kraken were at their best, that line was buzzing and creating chances. But when they were at their worst, they also didn't look the best. So, I don't have any strong takeaways on Shane tonight.
I know, and Sam was talking about this earlier, that like on the player scorecards, like that line did really well, and I do feel like that line drove a lot of possession. Now, I did qualify that with in the first half of the game. Right, like I feel like they banked a lot of goodwill in that one. Shane Wright 33% on the faceoff dot in this one. Yanni Gourde 36%.
Okay, never mind then.
Maddie 40%, and then Chandler Stevenson 61%. So
that checks out. But sometimes it's not about how many you win; it's about when the ones you win are.
Yes, and speaking of Shane on the faceoff dot, C-Trippier, I really wanted Shane to win that last faceoff so we could see what Jess Campbell drew up in that timeout huddle. She had the whiteboard out, holding court. I want to see the play. I'm sure we'll get another chance to see the play at some point this season, RJ, but it was really nice to see Jess doing that and holding court there. And then I actually thought the better moment was kind of right after, and I don't know that the TV cameras picked this up, but Jess goes back. Everybody kind of goes back out onto the ice. Maddie Beniers is there, and he turns around, starts talking with Jess. She pulls back out the whiteboard, and Maddie Beniers and Jess Campbell are both working together, and they're passing the pen back and forth, drawing things up. And I thought that was a really cool moment between a coach and a player, kind of putting their heads together, trying to make something work, sharing what they're seeing, right? Because coaches have a very different perspective on the game from players, just because of naturally kind of where they're at. And I like the idea of them coming together and that trust already being there from a new assistant coach to a player, and then also Maddie stepping up, right? Maybe that A on his chest, giving him a little bit more confidence where he could take on a slightly more on ice leadership role where he's going to be there and working with an assistant coach, drawing up a play.
Yeah, and those are the things you'd love to see from Jess Campbell. And I also love to see the crowd reaction, which maybe you already talked about, to her, especially during the staff intros before the game. I think she had the loudest cheer by far of any of the staff, maybe even more than the players. And that was maybe short of Eberle being announced captain, but that's it really. And that was really cool to see the fans are totally on board and they're happy about her. They're excited for her. And then also funny moment from the post-game presser. So Dan was asked what he was thinking, what was going through his mind when they introduced Jess and that huge cheer for her. And of course, Dan, funny as he is, said, well, I was waiting to see if the reaction to me would be just as big. It wasn't.
That is a pretty classic Dan answer. And it is interesting. I was wondering after the preseason, after a game like today, would we see his temperament kind of change? Right? Like, here it is. This game counted. They lost it. This was a game they were up 2-0, and he's still kind of he stays the same guy. And maybe some people are going to hear that and have issue with it, but I feel like after last year, somebody who is going to be consistent regardless of how this team performs, that's a good thing. I enjoy hearing that this is a coach who, I know he's going to go give them, work with them on the stuff and tell them he knows that they know that, the game got away and all that kind of stuff. But I'm happy to hear that it's a coach who's kind of stayed true to himself and stayed consistent, because I feel like that's what we talked about yesterday, RJ. It means things hopefully shouldn't slide the way they slid last year, where things just kind of spiral out of control and nobody's really there to kind of contain it.
And don't let that make you think that he doesn't hate to lose, because he does. And talk about consistency. Before the game, Dylan, you remember this morning, got in there for the presser, just because kind of pounding on the table a little bit because he was so excited. Even gave a couple pounds on the table before any questions after the game. And you could tell this guy who hates to lose, like, it wasn't out of just pure anger, but it was just like, we had that one and then we didn't get it done.
Yeah. Amanda said, didn't Maddie have an A in some of the preseason games? And
He did.
He did, but I just assumed that was because they were just kind of like half rosters, so they just like
Exactly.
step up, and it was like, oh, we'll throw Maddie a bone kind of thing. Nobody had made it feel or seem as though it was going to be this, and so that is pretty cool. But yes, you are correct, Amanda. Stratic, there were a couple times Ebbs managed to get a puck behind the net and throw it into the slot, but no one was really there to connect. Some chemistry left to build there. That's why I want him with Shane, RJ. I felt like in this one, I know I talked about it yesterday, my ideal lineup, and really the only thing with the forward group I would change is I would have Eberle with Shane and Tolvanen, and I would put Bjorkstrand back up onto the Maddie line. And I did feel like Bjorkstrand couldn't really do what he needed to do on the Shane line as far as winning certain puck battles and kind of keeping up the pressure that they had. And I couldn't help but think, but like when Ebbs was throwing some of those pucks there, I was like, that's the look Shane wants. That's the look Shane lives for. And I thought, because he did connect on one of them with that Maddie chance in the first period. And there was a part of me, as great as chance as it was from Maddie and good on him for making the play, there's a part of me that thought Shane would have scored there.
Yeah, I'd have to agree on that. Shane has a little bit more finish than Maddie, and this game certainly made a good case for that suggested switch. I wonder if it's something we do see. I guess now also we get to find out what kind of changes, if any, we see after a loss, as close as it was.
Yeah. Some comments in here on Yanni Gord, right? And takes the penalty that kind of kills your momentum going into the third period, stuff like that. Just the idea of got a $5 million plus fourth liner and didn't really contribute anything positively here from Sean. Your thoughts on Yanni Gord in this one?
Well, I remember talking to you right at the time of the penalty and saying that I thought it was a little soft. I didn't love the call there. And I mean, he's trying to play his guy tight. He's trying to play some hard defense. The stick gets on the other guy's stick. It never really got into the hand. So I don't love the call, but I think on the previous shift, there were a couple, call them half penalties against the Kraken, right, that didn't get called. And so I think it kind of adds up to a whole penalty almost, which is why that got called. But that is a killer penalty. You want to be able to go into the third period and be on the offensive, make that push, much like they did for some of their preseason games. We saw that in the preseason where they were able to go and score, I mean, even as little as 10 seconds into the third period, right? And put on that push. And when you're starting shorthanded, you can't do that. It kind of messes the momentum up there. Yeah, didn't see a whole lot of other positive, redeeming factors there from Yanni in this one. I don't know what his total ice time was or how much he played, but yeah, that's, at the end of the day, though, if he's a fourth liner, that might be what it is.
Yeah, I mean, there's 13:32 for Yanni.
That's fourth line minutes on a regular team.
Yeah, it's not much. It's obviously going to be out there for like the PK, and that'll tack on an extra minute or so. Something's has to happen there. Either he needs to move up the lineup and contribute in a different way, or maybe they need to, maybe that's where the Kraken find some of the cap relief there, and you just make a hockey trade with somebody to bring somebody else in. But I just feel like I've kind of felt this way for a little while. Like it's not. I don't know how it's supposed to work long term. Having him there and in that spot, I don't know that he has adjusted to it, and I don't entirely know what he's supposed to do in it either. Just his skill set, and then what a traditional fourth liner is going to do. I don't know. I was optimistic before, yesterday when we were recording the pod, and then seeing things today, it felt like, Turbo was playing his Turbo game. Ty Karchi, I thought, had a fantastic game, and then Yanni was a little bit along for the ride.
Yeah, and it's just tough when you don't have maybe the role that you should on a team. It just feels like he's kind of part of the leftovers there with how this lineup works. And I would like to see him get a shot in the top 9 as a wing. Mm-hmm. You can bring Ben Myers up as another center at some point. I want to see him get a shot at wing and see if that gives him some more energy.
Yeah. Virginia, do you think the Kraken will be able to figure out counter adjustments going forward?
I think so. I have trust in the coaching staff that they're going to take a look at the film and see what they can adjust. There's some smart people on that staff. We'll find out come this road trip, at least the early indications, but I don't see why not.
I absolutely believe they will, because I've seen them do it in Coachella Valley, right? We've watched Dan make adjustments. We've watched, Jess Campbell, obviously part of that staff, make adjustments. I know that they are capable of doing it. I think maybe we won't see it as often or all that much early on in the season here, as they're still working on just getting everybody used to their systems. I hate to kind of keep bringing up this point or bringing up what Dan has continued to talk about with the media, which is, kind of give us 20 games. If we expect 20 games before everything's all together. But that is the reality of this team and the reality of certain aspects of it when it comes to the coaching staff. It would be difficult while guys are still trying to acclimate to the new systems or new situations to then be like, okay, guess what? For this third period, I need you all to change it. Right now, on one hand, I do think like, look, they're professionals. They should be able to handle it. Like that's their job. But I could also understand a coaching staff not wanting to make it too complicated in like the first month of the season.
Yeah, and especially in game one.
Yeah. But I have been in the building on several occasions where I have seen the Firebirds come out for a third period playing either offensively or defensively a completely different look than what they had done previously in the game. And there's no reason to think that Bylsma wouldn't be able to do that with the Kraken the way he did with the Firebirds. So I definitely think that that's something that could be done. Let's see. It looks like Sam Reinhart scored for the Cats. RJ, people letting us know. Ricky pointing out that the right line, was shortchanged by a few shifts. I do think, that's you could give them more shifts. Like I thought they played well, RJ, and Byron pointing out is the Yanni Gord's 13:31 was still more than the right line.
Oh yeah, and I noticed that. I remember we checked about halfway through the game. Bjorkstrand had the least ice time of any player on the Kraken, right? I don't know if he finished that way, but that probably shouldn't be the case.
Yeah, let me just confirm. Well, Ty Cartier had 11:52, so Ty Cartier finished with the lowest ice time. But Oliver Bjorkstrand was the only other player under 13 minutes, and this is a guy that was your second leading scorer last year.
You could argue he's your second best forward. Shouldn't be getting the second least ice time.
Yeah. So there's something's going to need to get figured out there. I feel like for sure. Paul, thank you both for sharing your collective insights. I had to work during the game, and this therapy session is helping me digest this loss. There's a lot of season ahead, and we will rise above. You bet. You're very welcome, Paul. Let's see. Just feels extra rough, this loss, because we had the lead, and even after those 4 minutes of rough hockey from Seattle, they still looked better, if not even with St. Louis the rest of the game. Kalen, that is still, I think, a tough one for me, RJ, right? Because we had talked about it yesterday. I mentioned this earlier. These are the teams that like you need to win and beat, and seeing them, like I knew St. Louis's roster wasn't very good, RJ, just like looking at it. It didn't look very good the first half of this game.
Right, when we were predicting things for this season and we did our previews on Patreon, right, we were talking about the St. Louis Blues, and I think we both agreed it's probably not a playoff team.
No.
I didn't see anything today that made me change my mind on that. I feel like this is probably not a playoff team. They're going to be in the hunt, but it's a beatable team. And it's like you said on the last podcast, the type of team that you need to beat to get ahead of those teams and actually into a playoff spot. And so, maybe you can excuse it in the first game of the season, but as we get further along in the schedule, we pointed out on the podcast that how many games they have like that in October and November. Those are the games that you need to win. You need to get not just 1, but 2 points out of those.
Right. And Sean's saying the next 3 games are challenging. Kraken needed to win this one. I don't know that you needed to win this one, right? Like I said, month of October, I think, you obviously can't go like 0 for 13 in the month of October, but I think you could afford to lose, drop one of the more winnable games, 1 or 2, and you could maybe come out of it, as long as you really use a game like today and that experience of kind of losing the momentum, or use the experience of not really having the juice, as Dan Bylsma would probably put it, right, in the third period. If you can work on those things and use today as a learning experience, I think it's fine. If this becomes like a repeatable problem against teams that you're more or less even with, well, then that becomes a different story, but we'll just kind of have to wait and see.
Yep.
Zoidberg loving the lapel pins. Thank you very much, Zoidberg. Anybody, feel free. If you see RJ walking around and he's got his backpack.
I have them in my backpack. If you find me, just let me know. I will give you a pin.
Definitely. Maddie, at least it was close and not a blowout. That is true. We do have that one. Some people are a little worried about this next one, though, RJ, against the Wild. Sean pointed out we don't have a great history against them. Who would you start in net? Because that was a question that was posted earlier. Would you roll with Grubauer again after this one? What did you think about Grubauer in this one? Or do you go ahead and make the switch to Joey? You're going to have the back-to-back with Dallas that very next night, which is rough.
So you're going to have to go with the other goalie. Whoever you don't go with against Minnesota is going to get that Dallas game. And so you kind of have to weigh that out. I would look at their splits recently against each team. So I can't give a solid answer on that because I'd want to take a look at that. As for Grubauer today, though, I was wondering if anyone had brought him up because we got a lot on social media, but we always get a lot on social media whenever Grubauer loses the game. But it's one of those where I don't think he played poorly. Like, I think he was okay, but it came down to the moment where you need a certain save at a certain time. It's going to prevent things from going off the rails. And I think the Broberg goal, the second Blues goal, that's that key moment in the game. The Blues have just scored to make it 2-1. That's a stoppable shot. I know a screen kind of goes in front of him, but at the end of the day, it kind of leaks through him. And that's one I know he wants back. But that moment in the game is one where you really just can't afford to not make a save that you should make. And so the overall body of work is okay, but he doesn't make that save. And I think that was a turning point in the game. Blues go on to get another one that at breakaway, so it wasn't really his fault. But still, I think that's what I look back at. Now, on the flip side, at the start of the third period, the Blues had some really good chances, and Grubauer made some fantastic saves.
That point blank one from Nick Leddy, man.
I know. Excellent save. And if he doesn't make that, game's over, and they don't really have a chance, it feels like, to kind of climb back into it. So he makes the save there. But I think at the end of the day, this is just what you have with Philip Grubauer. He is an average NHL goalie at this point. And so how often are you going to get those saves at the right moments where the game's on the line? About half the time. And he did it at one point. He didn't do it at another point, and that's the difference. If you have an offense that's not going to outscore those problems, it's a 3-2 league, and that's what it was today.
Yeah, I noticed this as well. Byron pointing out, didn't it seem like Gru was playing the puck more than usual early? I think that's maybe part of like just the idea of getting the puck up ice. They want to be a skating team. They kind of want to go that way.
Yeah, and I think there were situations where he was kind of forced into it, or where a goalie would, even the goalie that stays in his net a lot of the time, would be pressured into it to kind of try and make a play.
Yeah, Byron saying strategy to stay engaged when you're not seeing a lot of shots. Maybe, but I think it was more so just the other. Now, I was originally thinking RJ Gru against Dallas, Joey against Minnesota, just because like the playoffs history and stuff. Gru against the Stars, but Maddie pointing out Joey got pulled at the last Wild game. I know because I was there for my birthday. So maybe not.
So maybe not then. I mean, if it wasn't back-to-backs, I would say Joey for sure the next game, or for most opponents, just because I thought like Grubauer was okay but not great. You want to give Joey a shot. Yeah. But with the back-to-back, actually, I don't know. Maybe you go the other way.
Yeah, I don't know. So, if you're going to be giving up breakaways, you probably want Joey in net. As unfair as they are to goalies, breakaways are technically savable. That's a good point. I mean, Joey is arguably better in those spots.
Yes, I think
not
for
even
sure. I mean, you can make an argument either way. But even on the first Kyrou goal, really both, but the first one, I think, where he kind of beats Alexiak wide and cuts to the middle of the net. Look, that's a tough spot for a goalie. I don't really blame Grubauer for not stopping it. It was a great move by Kyrou to go 5-hole, but I couldn't help but think Joey probably tries to poke check that one because the angle's just not fully there, right?
Yeah.
I don't know for sure. It might happen the exact same way, but I feel like a more aggressive, it's a gamble, right? But I feel like a more aggressive goalie might have got that save.
Yeah, it was a tough one. I'm going to do a quick last call here for everybody as we'll start wrapping things up. Alex, I'm frankly not sure why the coaching staff went with Gru first. Joey should be the primary starter, in my opinion. This is pure speculation, RJ. Is it just because on paper he's the guy because of his contract?
I think you at least have to give him a chance to get engaged and to try and be the guy because of that. I mean, that's kind of the reality of how these things work. At a certain point, if it gets bad enough, you cut bait. But I think until that happens, you have to let him try and get going. And, it didn't work tonight, but he's going to get plenty of other chances. I was talking with somebody else before the game too, who mentioned, I didn't check this myself, that maybe Grubauer had better splits against the Blues, against this particular opponent, so that might be part of it as well. But I think the contract certainly does play a role.
It feels like first home opener at home and all, you know what I mean? Like all that kind of stuff. First season opener at home, all that kind of stuff. You kind of go with the guy that has more than just this season under contract and that you brought in and has been a big focal point for the team. I was kind of feeling that. It's interesting though, the idea of going with them based on the splits, because Joey does not have a lot of NHL experience. So do you feel that you can, in a situation like that, RJ, go with the splits when it's possible that Joey's only ever played like one game against the Blues?
It's not perfect, and the more limited your sample size is, the more dubious it becomes. But I still like to look at it just personally. I don't know. I don't know what the analytics say about that. I should talk to Allison about that, about the splits for goalies and stuff. But I'm sure that the team knows that they have their own numbers. But it's one of those where I just have a feeling that there's something to it.
Yeah, and Cactus asking, what are the chances Joey is still here next year? It all depends on how this year goes for both goaltenders. I think a lot of it will come down to that, and just what situation they're in with each of them, as far as whether or not you can keep you want to potentially buy out Grubauer, or if you're not going to be able to buy out Grubauer if Joey plays too well and he's going to be too expensive.
Yeah, all options are potentially on the table based on how they play.
Yep, definitely. All right, want to go ahead and wrap things up. Let's try not to leave it on that kind of sort of sour note, though. RJ, what for you was the number one positive from today that you saw from the team?
The start of the game, that whole first period, because it looked like a Firebirds game. It looked like the way that Coachella Valley played. And that's a way that you're going to generate a lot of offense, that you're, even if you don't have a star player, that you're going to manufacture goals. They went to the right areas, and they didn't, the Blues adjusted. The Kraken didn't make the right counter adjustments, but that gives me hope that we saw something that's going to be repeatable in a way that you can create offense throughout the course of a season. So that really gave me some hope. Also, all the stuff pregame too. The blue carpet with everyone coming in, that was packed. There were tons of fans there. The pregame intros and everything, the big cheers for everybody, the captain announcement, the new hype video and everything. It just felt like the energy was back. And after, especially the last like 10, 20 games of last season, where we were all kind of tired of what was going on, it was tiresome, right? But to see the fans come back with all that energy and be ready for a game like this, even though it's 1:30 p.m. on a Tuesday and you probably had to call out sick from work to be here, that was cool. It shows that the fans and the community and everything is still alive and healthy, and that was cool to see.
Yeah, no, the building was loud. It was a lot of fun. I love that they have the new screens that drop down for the pregame intro, and then also when they're doing the hoist the colors at the start the third period. I think that's a new feature that if you haven't been to a Kraken game yet this season, which there's only been today, definitely come by and you can kind of check that out. I thought that was a lot of fun. I'm with you. It's just my biggest takeaway is the fact that team looked dangerous, and that it's just been so long since I've seen this team look dangerous. I love that aspect of it. Sean, first half looked like a whole new, much better team. I agree with that. And then we'll end it on this, RJ, from Maddie. Best goal. Only got two to choose from, but which is your favorite goal?
My favorite one has to be the Vince Dunn goal out of the two. And I love the play that Jordan Eberle made along the wall. I mean, he's going against Colton Parayko. That's a big guy. I mean, he's 6'5", 6'6", and he battles through and he wins that battle and creates a 2-on-1 to get that whole play going. And that's something that Yanni even pointed out after the game. He called that an elite play. When asked just about Jordan being the captain, he said that kind of shows, right, why he's the captain. He's willing to go in and battle to create that. Vince Dunn sticking with his own shot, and just the first goal of the season, right? I mean, it got everyone up out of their seats, so that has to be my favorite.
I liked it because he didn't necessarily shoot for a rebound, but it shows like an example of like in a situation like that, don't be afraid to shoot. You might be able to get the rebound, and you're going to be able to, very, very much get the win, score the goal there and everything. So I really like that. I'm going to end it on this though, RJ. This very shocking stat from Viren. This was Grubauer's first time playing the Blues as a Kraken.
No way.
Yes, Joey has played them 4 times, Martin Jones 3 times, and Chris Drieger twice. This is Grubauer's first time as a member of the Seattle Kraken playing the St. Louis Blues. That's
What a stat,
wild.
Byron. Excellent
That's so
job
wild.
looking that up. Yeah. Okay, so I have to take that up with the person who told me he had good numbers against the Blues. Maybe he meant
I mean, for
before.
career, I'm sure he got lots of games when he was in Colorado against them, but as a member of the Kraken, this was game 1.
All right. Interesting stuff. You
The
guys never
more you know.
disappoint.
Yes, the more you know. Now, bit of a weird schedule here for the Kraken, right? We're not going to really see everybody until post game on Saturday. Got several days off after the 1:30 Tuesday start. That was this. But really looking forward to that next game from the Kraken here, RJ, and just enjoying the new season.
Yeah, happy to be back and happy that I'll get to see you in person a few minutes from now when we go down and meet up again. So that's the best part of it all for me.
Definitely. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us, and we will see you all next time.